Little thumbs up. Hello, everyone. Hi, Tiffany. Thanks for joining us. Okay, we are good to go. Let's get into it. So,
Amazing.
perfect. Okay, great. So I have with me Dr. Sarah Ghekiere, and we are going live on Instagram and on Facebook. We're doing this. So if you have any questions, if you had time to listen to Dr. Sarah's to her masterclass, please feel free to drop questions in. Even if you haven't, no big deal. Drop in those questions as we move along. Dr. Sarah is a naturopathic doctor, but she also loves to help make the spiritual aspect of health and healing practical for everyone. So today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into her talk. And Sarah, I would love if you could first just kind of give us just a quick overview of what those steps were that you went over in the talk for those who, just for a good reminder for us all.
Yeah. So I think first I want to kind of like lay the groundwork with number one is that being an alchemist and having that perspective is really important when you go to do this work. So if you have the lens as an optimist, when hardship happens, you can be really hard on yourself because you want to just jump to that optimism instead of working through everything that's happening. So number one is like, if you're an alchemist, when hardship happens, it's like, okay, all right, this is really hard right now. I'm going to feel everything I've got to feel, but then I'm going to learn and understand, what is this here to teach me? How is this here for my highest good? Second thing to really understand is inner peace is within your control. But the issue is that people think inner peace means that you're no longer going to feel pain or suffering. And that's where we get really hard on ourselves, but that's not true, because as humans, like, we are souls living in a physical body, and our physical body experiences emotions. It's part of our experience. We're never going to get rid of that. We're always going to feel emotions. So if you can drop down and accept that these emotions aren't wrong. Oh no, I'm hearing feedback. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to just turn this down. Okay. So if you can, can you maybe turn is your Instagram on, volume on? Sorry, it's like really messing with me. I would not be good at any sort of like singing or anything. Okay, that's better. Thank you. So if you are, what was I saying? Oh, so like if you are experiencing emotions, that's just part of your human experience. It doesn't mean that anything's wrong. So if you can really understand that and accept that, okay, I'm going to experience things, but I don't have to place meaning onto them, then you can reach that state of inner peace. And that state of inner peace for me is knowing and trusting that, one, I'm doing the healing work that's necessary to release me from the things that I'm carrying around with me and taking with me in my life that I don't want to hold on to anymore. If I'm taking that action to heal those things, if I'm taking the action to step into and create that framework of the next version of myself, if I'm becoming like her in every day as best as I can, and if I trust that I am in the exact place that I need to be for my healing journey, and trust that there is a higher purpose for me and a higher cycle that I am living within, and that everything I'm experiencing is for my highest good to get me to where I want to go. If I can accept all of that, I am experiencing inner peace. So that's just the groundwork there. And so to move into the practical action steps, number one is the ability or awareness and the ability to create a pause for yourself. So we have these natural reactions that we have, that just as part of life, we just react based on the programming that's within us. And if we have the ability, or if we can create the ability to really distance ourselves from that impulse, that reaction, then we're able to be like, okay, like, feel what needs to be felt, hear the story and the meaning that we're placing onto things. We're able to just create distance from ourselves. And the way that I actually think about this is I got from Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, great book, highly recommend. But he talks about how, you know, when you're in a movie theater and you're watching a really good movie and you're in the movie, and then all of a sudden the movie's over and you kind of take a look around and you're like, oh, wow, I'm sitting in a movie theater. I've been eating popcorn this whole time. And I didn't even really realize because I was so in the movie. It's like, that's how our life is. We're living in our life, and so often we're so stuck to the movie of our life rather than creating a distance, creating that like higher vantage point of what could actually be going on and like the different cycles that we're living within. And so it's the way that I think about this first step is that ability to be like, okay, I'm sitting in a movie theater, I'm looking around, and this is where I'm at. Okay, I am not the movie that's playing. I am here observing it. So that's step one. The second step is creating sustainable self-care systems. And that is all about the way that you take care of yourself, like your personal hygiene, the hygiene of your home, the habits you have for yourself, and pulling in the naturopathic medicine background, the determinants of your health. How's your diet? How's your hydration? How well are you sleeping? How's your connections with loved ones? How are your relationships? Like all of those things play a role in this journey. And so if you can really create good systems for yourself, but you don't have to be perfect in it, but just have something set up so that you're able to have just a solid foundation for all of the other healing work to go on top of. Because what can happen is you could dive deep into the mental and the emotional work, but like kind of forget about your physical body, and you can get to healed places. But then all of a sudden, when hardship happens in life, because it inevitably does, this is part of life. So when it happens, then you just like crash and burn. But if you have those systems set up for yourself, there are things that you can fall back on, and it's just your way of taking care of yourself. So then the third step is the foundational self-discovery work, where it's like, who even am I? Who am I, and how did I become the person that I am? Because we are basically like sponges, and we just take in our environment, and we choose the role that we play, but most of the time it's chosen unconsciously. So if we can actually get ahead and consciously choose who we want to be, then like that just, I mean, that's everything, right? That's how we create our life. Next step is the deep healing work. So sometimes we have wounds that I use the analogy, I use this in the talk, of like a sailboat, and where it's like we know that there's things about ourselves that it's holding us back. You know, for me, a fear of being seen has always been a big one. And so it's like I've had to uncover all these different things in my childhood of the wounds and the stories that I made up about who I am based on experiences that happened. And I have had to go back in and like heal those parts of me and then choose a new story. And it's often that I think about a sailboat. This is what I was going to say. And it's like a sailboat that has an anchor down. So we have these anchors of these deep wounds where it's like a core memory, like a core wounding, that it gets dropped down, and we have to cut away that cord. We can't try to escape it, because if we're the boat and we try to do all these different things to escape it, eventually that cord brings us back, and you have to cut it. You have to cut the anchor away. So that's the way that I look at the deep wounding work. And then the next part is anchoring into the next version of yourself. And so this is all about understanding, what is that next version that I want to walk into? What is that version of me? How does she act? How does she behave? How does she carry herself? And if I can understand just the next step, not like way far off into the future, because that's going to seem too daunting to get to. It's like, what's just the next version of me? You know, how does she act? And if you can really understand who that person is and the choices that they make, you will be in your living your life, and there'll be a moment where you're able to create that distance, create that pause, and you're like, oh, I could either choose the next version of me, or I could choose the current version of me. And you get to choose, you know, but that anchoring into the next version is you repeatedly choosing that next version action and showing up and taking that action. Because the thing is, I had the belief, and I think a lot of people do as well, where it's like when we go into creating, like jumping into that next version of ourselves, we think we're going to like quantum leap and it's going to be like a flip of a switch. And all of a sudden we're that person. But it doesn't work that way. It's gradual. It's a gradual shift. And it happens through those choices of choosing to be that next version of you time and time again. So that's what that step is about. And then the self-trust in creating your own experience at the summit of experiencing that inner peace is all about when life happens, when the hard time comes, when you're faced with an old pattern that you thought you had healed, understanding that you are healing it at an even deeper level. And I once had this imagery that came to me that I'm feeling called to share, where, you know, when you had like, you were a kid and you got rips in your jeans and your mom put a patch on it and she sewed the patch on. That's the deep healing work that in the fourth step there of the deep healing work, that's the patch that you're putting on. But as life happens, the jeans, they stretch and you grow and those patches become kind of loose. And so something will happen and you're reminded of an old pattern that you thought you had healed. And you think that all the healing work was for nothing, or that you haven't healed it, or that this, that, and the next thing. That's not true though. What's true is that it's just ripped, and it's just so that you can heal it at an even deeper layer, deeper level. And it's going to be stronger this time. And so when that inevitably happens, you're able to just like feel the emotion that's coming through you, understand that emotions are just sensations in the body. They don't have to mean anything. And so you just feel in the body, you just take a moment, feel what's there, like do whatever you need to do, depending on what's, you know, ask yourself, like, what's most needed for my healing in this moment? Feel whatever it is, express your body in whatever way you need to express it, allow that energy to kind of pass through you. And I even see it as like dropping deeper into the emotion in order to allow it to really dissolve. And then you can, and then you can, like you will gain wisdom, you will gain insight through that experience. And you're able to like trust in yourself, trust in your ability that you are showing up, you are doing the healing work, you are taking the action necessary. And this is all happening for your highest good, even if you can't see it in this moment right now. And I think the other thing that is really important about this step is understanding that no matter what you choose, it's okay. If you choose an old pattern, if you consciously choose an old pattern over doing the work, that's amazing that you understood that you had a choice to make.
Yeah.
And that you like, it's okay. It's okay to be there. It's all okay. You know, it's all about coming back to the question, what do I want to experience in this moment? And being cool with whatever that answer is.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite questions, is because it's so powerful in recognizing that it is your choice, regardless of, again, like you said, if you're following an old pattern, it's still your choice. And that is the powerful part, right? Because I think about that even with like food and just all of these things where there can be a lot of shame wrapped up in these decisions. But if we understand, you know, the possible consequences, or, you know, like, or even just having like compassion about what that choice is, right? Like that's a really powerful place to be at, to be aware that I have a choice here. I'm choosing, you know, one way or the other. Even just there, being there and aware that you have that choice is a really powerful place to be at. So I'm really happy that you are like speaking to that, and that question of, yeah, what do I want to experience right here, right now? Because that's really all that life is. It's just a series of choices, a series of experiences. And yeah, it's just really powerful awareness.
Yeah. And it's like all you can ever experience is the present moment, you know? So it's like just for right now, you're okay. Just for right now, nothing is wrong. Just for right now, everything, like you're cool, you know?
Love that.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, do you want to continue?
So, well, that was like up the mountain. And I guess I did want to share, because I spoke in my talk about consciousness and how to see kind of the forest instead of being focusing on the tree. And that's kind of too, just like my movie theater analogy, right? Where it's like if you're focusing on the tree, you think that you're in the movie. Whereas if you are watching the movie, understanding that you're in a movie theater and that this is just a movie, it's like you're seeing the forest. So I think just what I wanted to share on this was like the ability to see the forest as the forest instead of just the tree has to do with your consciousness level. And the way that you will expand your consciousness is through the emotional healing work. And so this is going to be backwards on my little board here, but I think that this is an important, this is really big. Okay, so.
We love it. We love props.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can do this. All right. So right here, we have a consciousness map. And if you want to learn more about this, look up Dr. David Hawkins or just Google consciousness map, even you could do that. So this is the consciousness map. And at the top here, we have things that are power, things that we like, basically enlightenment is at the top. I didn't write that in. I wrote peace at the top because I think that's just my thing, right? But anyway, it's like power is where it's more rooted in love. It's more rooted in a higher perspective, in a higher understanding, in a belief higher than yourself. That's what I see the power to be. So power for me is really just surrendering to, I'm exactly where I need to be in order to learn the things that I need to learn. And I can do that with an open heart. Force is all of like pride, anger, desire, fear, grief, apathy, guilt, shame. So these are all of things that we feel that's like a dense energy that is not above the level of integrity. So it doesn't need it. Basically, this means that if you're operating with a consciousness level down here, you're going to think a certain thought, tell yourself a certain story, and you're going to be convinced that it's true, even if it makes you, even though it makes you feel terrible, and that your heart's not open, and you're not trusting in a higher being, power, whatever you want to call it. It's like you're in like the ego, you're in like, I have to force things, it's only me, it's only I'm like force. Okay, so that's where we're at on this map. So this is basically an event or an environment that happens, right? And there's like 4 different people that are going to take away a different experience from that one event, the same environment. They're all in the same environment, but they're all going to take away a different experience based on where they're operating at on this consciousness level. So the one at the top is going to be the one that's experiencing that inner peace. So it's going to be experiencing that, like, okay, this feels terrible, but I'm going to feel it all, and I'm going to trust it's all happening for me somehow. The one at the bottom is going to be feeling like, this is terrible. This is the worst thing ever. My life's over. Like, I'm never getting out of this. There's no hope. There's nothing that I can do. And I share this because the way that you get from this experience to this experience is through emotional healing. It's through the emotional healing work that I share in my talk. All of those steps, it will lead you from here to here. And it's through healing the emotions and expanding your consciousness. So
I love that. Thank you so much. I'm a visual person, so it always helps having any kind of Any kind of visual. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about of choosing your experience and just being aware of that choice, because not only do we have choices in our actions, but we have choices in how we feel, what we believe about those actions, right? Like we can choose to feel shame, right? That kind of comes from those anchors, those stories that we have, those beliefs that we have about those choices or those actions, or we can choose compassion over that action or behavior, right? Those are very different. It's still a choice, and that's kind of that greater like perspective. It takes time to get to that point of having choice over those thoughts, those beliefs. It takes time to get there. So even having compassion for that journey,
Yeah.
it takes time to climb the mountain, right?
Yeah. Well, and I would say too, the way that you're going to get there is going through the pain. You can't just like be feeling all of this shame and just be like, okay, I'm just going to love it away. Like, no, you have to feel that pain in order to move through it, to transmute that energy. And then you'll be able to get to a point where compassion isn't as hard. It's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And something when you said that just kind of hit me was being, allowing yourself to feel that pain helps to acknowledge that like you're okay with that. I think that's part of why we shove things down. It's like we don't want to know, we don't allow ourselves to know what's on the other side of that. We just keep shoving it down because we're afraid to kind of address those feelings. And when you're able to sit in that discomfort and still be like, okay, this is uncomfortable, but I'm okay still. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
I'm still here, I'm still alive, I'm still capable. You know what I mean? Like that is the trusting that like I'm still alive, because I really feel like that fear of like, well, what's going to happen if I feel this like icky, uncomfortable thing,
Yeah. I think often people think that when they open themselves up to their pain, that their pain is just it's gonna become them and they're not gonna be able to get out of it.
Yeah.
I think that that's a really big fear that people have. And what I want to say to that is it's actually the resistance to the pain that makes your pain last.
Yeah. Oh. Yes.
Yeah.
It's really good.
And so when you open up to it, it's almost like, I'm getting this imagery to share right now. It's almost like a big wave at the ocean. You might have this huge wave that comes in that just goes through your whole body and it feels terrible. And you're literally just like moving your body and just like so uncomfortable. But if you just like surrender and like open up to it, it's just that one wave. And then it's calm after that. Until your soul is ready to heal that next wave. But it's not, this too shall pass. It's not going to last forever. Everything is temporary.
And that's what's the really hard part to see when you are deep in the woods. You're like deep in the forest, navigating your way out. And I think part of it is opening yourself up to that guidance, to other perspectives, to having help. I think so many of us have that independent, I'm going to figure this out on my own. I'm alone in the woods, right? Trying to find my own way out. And we don't realize that like there are people who want to help us.
Yeah.
You don't have to be alone. You don't have to figure it all out on your own, right? That's another story that like we've told ourselves, a belief that we've told ourselves, and maybe at one point that was true, or that felt really true for us too, so there's like, again, having compassion for where it came from. But just understanding that, okay, but if you open yourself up to not having to do it all alone, like not having to navigate through the woods on your own, then you're more likely to find that guidance. It's really hard to find that guidance when you have your head down, looking right in front of you, and you're just trekking along. I'm doing this on my own. I'm doing this on my own. It's going to be really hard to even accept guidance when it does show up.
Yep. Yeah, you have to be open and to not see it as wrong. Like there's nothing wrong with you if you can't do this on your own, right? Like we're not meant to be alone.
Exactly. Like we're not meant to do it alone, that's just
Right.
not how, like, if you really think about human nature, and like we wouldn't have made it this far as a species if we were trying to all do it on our own. Like we literally would not still be here.
Right. Yeah. And another thing that's coming to mind to share too is don't feel like you don't feel like you have to work through all of your wounds and then you'll be okay. Because because I think there's a lot of talk like shadow work, oh, excuse me, shadow work and like all this stuff, which yes, like there is shadow work to be done, but if you're constantly looking for things to heal, you're going to constantly be finding things. Whereas I used to be that person. I used to be like, I have to heal all the wounds and then I'll be able to do whatever. And it's like I just realized like, no, the triggers in my daily life are showing me and pointing me as to what lessons I'm meant to be healing right now, period. I don't need to be going and looking and doing all this other stuff, because whatever you go looking for, you will find in one way or another.
Yeah. And I think that's, oh man, because you just see it so much on social media, and, everyone's like digging. And it's like you just have to like take a break, give yourself a rest. Right? Like allow yourself to appreciate where you're currently at, how far you've currently gone. You don't have to keep going into each of those waves like you talked about. You don't have to like keep finding those and trying to conquer each of them. Give yourself a break. We all need rest, because you can for sure get burnt out even along the healing journey, right? Like if you don't rest and allow yourself to take a little retrospect and see, dang, like I came a long way, like let's appreciate that, right? That's a really good reminder, because I think some people feel it's like they start to feel, oh, I'm lazy if I'm not working on myself, or if I'm not digging, and like, no, we all need to rest. That's part of, right? You look at like an athlete's training, they rest. They have off seasons, right? They're not just playing games every single day. They're not just like constantly
Right. Well, and that's why like in my talk, that mountain, it's like that's why the deep healing work is one part. One part of what, 5, 6, I don't even know how many there are. You know what I mean? Like it's one part, because the rest is like just live your life. Live your life.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a good place to kind of wrap this up. Anything else that you would like to, or does anyone have any questions or anything before we kind of wrap this up? Thank you all so much for tuning in today. We'll definitely have these available so you can listen back, because we talked about a lot of stuff. And I, again, loved that visual that you gave us. So thank you for sharing that with us, so we can all kind of listen back and go at our own pace through some of this. And definitely be sure to listen to Dr. Sarah's full talk. So if you aren't yet signed up, then you can still register. You'll still get access to be able to listen to those talks. We'll be releasing them all throughout the week from all of our speakers. So definitely tune in, and thank you all again so much. Thank you so much. Sarah, for taking the time to do this and for sharing this wonderful journey that you've laid out for us. Then we can kind of better understand what that journey can look like and the steps that we can take to gain a greater sense of inner peace. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kirsten, for putting on this amazing summit and having me on to speak. And thank you all for being here. And let me know if you have any questions or if you just want to talk about this stuff. Obviously, I am obsessed with it and I love it so much. So I would love to talk to you.
And can you just remind us real quick where they can find you, where they can tune in to hear a little bit more and work with you?
Yeah, so you can check out my Instagram. My website is being redone at the moment, but yeah, just basically Instagram. If you want to reach out, DM me. I like seriously love when people reach out and share different things with me. So please don't be afraid to do that.
Perfect. Well, thank you again all so much for tuning in. And it was great talking with you.
Yeah, good talking with you.
All right, we'll see you all in the next one.